Right, so hello everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We might have a few people join late, but we will just let them in as and when they join. Obviously, as you all know, we intended to run this session as a breakfast briefing at IStructE, but events, obviously, as I'm sure you can appreciate, have made that impractical. So yeah, thank you very much for your patience and understanding. We will rerun the event in the future, and to that end
is from India and very involved in structural and civil engineering and other aspects of that. And Ala is a brilliant and I would say understated engineer from Syria. He has done some amazing work in his still young career, but you'll hear from Vinayak and Ala later when they present some of the details of some of the case studies and also in question time. So I hope that gives you a little background as to who I am and what my platform is and what my message is. May we have the next slide, please, Andy? Could we have the next slide? Hello?
it should be there, Tony. It should be on the next.
Yes, audience, forgive us if we one or two technical glitches. I have to say this is the first time that I have done that. The slide I see seems to have an empty audience, which is perhaps a bit relevant. So we'll be explaining today how structural engineers literally can gain the benefit of millions of pounds by using tax incentives which encourage innovation, which we do in our everyday work. So who we are, I believe there's a slide which shows some happy smiling faces. I don't know if we can move to that. Is there a picture of the Invennt team, please? Andy, are you receiving me? Oh, yes, so everybody, I hope you can see this. I must have been the photographer because I don't seem to appear in the photograph. And this is the Invennt team at undoubtedly a Christmas celebration. There are 15 or more of us in the UK. And the unique aspect of Invennt is that everyone is from a construction related background. We're not accountants, but we do understand the HMRC scheme inside out. And here are the team. You'll see one or two grey hairs, but a clutch of very young, if I may say so, very bright people who are all in different aspects of our industry, consulting engineers, architects, project managers, contractors, all from the background of this industry that we all know so well. So we select appropriate specialists for you, and of course there'll be engineers if any of you engage with us. And you'll be talking to like-minded people and not to accountants and looking at spreadsheets. So you'll see as we develop the way that we work. Can we move to the next slide, please? So our mission is to create value through construction, and this is one aspect of what we do at Invennt, and it's a much not misunderstood, but it's not understood by so many people. I would say 90% of our industry and profession are either unaware of the research and development benefits, or just think that it's not for us. We tend to think it's for people in white coats and university science parks in the pharmaceutical world. but we could not be so wrong. What we do every day as engineers is inventive, but we just take it for granted. So at Invennt, we rightly claim to be the market's leaders, research and development, tax claims. We can achieve 42% statistically better on average than your average accountant, and most people that go the accountancy route get bogged down, give up, and don't achieve the goal. Well, you know, we can. I would say that, wouldn't I? But as I say, I'm a very satisfied client and endorse absolutely what Invennt can achieve. Over the past years, we've identified £54 million worth of qualifying costs and achieved excellent results for our clients. So applying to the tax authority's definition, that's the thing that as engineers we tend not to know. We think that it's something out there in the ether, but the list of admissible projects is something that Invennt will be able to introduce you as businesses and hopefully new clients to. They have that magic link, if you like, by understanding and interpreting your everyday work and our everyday work into research and development. It's not all research and development, of course, that we do, but you'll find that there's a good sector of what we regard as everyday engineering does indeed qualify. So as the slide says here, the tax credits are designed and underwritten by the Chancellor just last week to give even greater funds for research and development, to encourage innovation by allowing businesses to reclaim some of the money they have spent on developing new or improving existing products and services. All those countless structural schemes and different ways to design and construct buildings that we think of as endless pieces of paper. We are in fact working on research and development. If you're a loss-making SME and business is tight and competitive these days, we should never be afraid to admit to losses. You can achieve a better return for every £100 identified as qualifying for R&D, 33.35% in fact. And if you're a profit-making SME, you can claim 24.7%. That's £24.70 in every £100 of qualifying costs. So there's a lot of cash or credits out there for you. Next slide. So what is this magic formula according to HMRC? The whole list isn't here, but it's any project that seeks to extend overall knowledge or capability, use science or technology to duplicate the effects of the existing process, material, device or product in a new or improved way. We tend to think so much of what we do is all those things that we've done before, but we don't regard as R&D. Create a process or service that extends knowledge or capability, or make an appreciable improvement to an existing process, material or service. As I say, Invennt specialists will be able to translate into your language what the HMRC regard as relevant. As I say, all of those things that we do every day, finding easier, safer or greener ways of working, tackling obstacles in novel ways, advancing solutions through the development of new materials, unusually profiled elements and the like. Even the logistics of efficient working, when we look at some of the central London sites, not necessarily related just to that, you'll see that we are inventive by our thinking. So claims by construction companies, despite the construction industry accounting for 7% of the gross domestic product of the country, construction companies make up less than 2% of all claims. There's a big, large sum of cash and credits that lay unclaimed. And at Invennt, they certainly, for my old practice, developed for me and made a very substantial difference to the business, a very substantial difference. Next slide. I hope you're all receiving this and not bored. So qualifying expenditure, my colleagues from Invennt know even better than me because they do the interrogation and the investigation, and we do a lot of the legwork for you. We'll come into your firm and talk to your hands-on directors and some of the technicians that you have to identify, and then we'll select a number of projects that we know will qualify, and then we can extrapolate that, particularly for larger firms, across the whole of your business. So direct staff costs, subcontractors, indirect staff, contracts, overheads, materials. But HMRC does impose a strict time limit on claims. Claims must be made within 18 months of the accounting period end, which is why you must act now if you're to capitalize on this golden opportunity, as I say, this golden opportunity to minimize your tax bill or indeed receive cash. We'll now look at one or two example claims that will perhaps put into your language and give a perspective on the sorts of things that may well qualify for work that you all have in hand. So I'm now going to introduce Vinayak and Alla, two of my colleagues from Invennt, both engineers, both of whom are very experienced in both hands-on engineering in the earlier part of their careers, and now really are true experts in this area. So they'll present to you one or two examples of projects that will put it into your own language. So Vinayak and Alla, can I call on you in turn to just run through some examples, please? Thank you all for listening to my hopefully not dull monotone.
Thank you, Tony. As Tony has mentioned, there are 4 main points where HMRC reiterates what could qualify as a potential R&D project. Now, through the couple of examples, we are trying to showcase what our clients have done in terms of enhancing either the overall knowledge or capability of the field of structural engineering, or they have tried to create a process or develop a new unique use for a material or a service where the overall knowledge or capability of structural engineering has been enhanced. We are also looking at cases where there is an appreciable improvement to an existing process of design and or execution. We are also going to be looking at examples where engineering practices learned from other industries to make sure that they can deliver projects in a faster, cheaper, or more sustainable method. In the first example, we are looking at the extension of an existing hospital project, where the scope that was provided to our client was to incorporate a new intensive care unit and a staff nursery. Now, these are the kind of projects that structural engineers like yourself will probably see on a day-to-day basis. However, in this very particular case, the methodology of design was not very straightforward. As an existing expert in the field, our clients did not know the effective way of load transfer, probably because there were a lot of information that was not available, that there was inaccurate survey information. The information that was provided to our clients was not complete or comprehensive. So due to all of those challenges, they were not able to use the traditional way of design, and the load transfer and the methodology for design was hence not very clear. So what they did was they designed a new technique wherein they used innovative methods to understand what data was not available and identify and capture those information, and then use that to develop supporting columns or developing a superstructure where the supporting columns were negated. This new method was an improvement to an existing method and was almost pivotal to the delivery of the project. Now, examples like these are very common. However, the core of what we define as a qualifying project is wherein, as experts in the field, you are not sure of how to design a particular scheme, and you have to iteratively go through a process or speak to other experts in the field to enhance your current methodology or to come up with a new methodology, either to capture data or to incorporate the data into the design process. Now, for this very client, we were able to claim a considerable amount, which accounted for about 16% of their total turnover and accounted for about 1.2 million in qualifying costs. So that is a clear benefit of over £250,000. Allah, do you want to pick this up?
Yeah, in the second example, actually, as we mentioned in the previous examples, the R&D in here is around the technical uncertainties. So these technical uncertainties had to be overcome actually through a process that the client, that the structural engineering consultants, they created. Actually, in this particular example, actually, the project was two parts. It's an existing building, but there is an extension, or there is a new building also need to be established. So the consultants, the structural engineers in this example, had actually to do intensive sort of R&D activities, and the idea around these activities phase to ensure that to examine what elements of this existing buildings are still valid actually for these projects, and to maintain these parts, and maybe to support and enhance the other parts, and then afterwards to create a methodology, structural design methodology in a bespoke design to go forward. The eligible expenditure with this project actually, they were around first of all the ensuring the safety of the tower. So they developed the report about the safety of this tower, and the second one is they developed solutions to the defects and other solutions to reinforce some of the elements of this structure. We managed with this project actually to qualify 1.4 of qualifying cost, and this is constitute to 12% of the relative to the share of this business.
Look, could I just add to that, maybe?
Yeah, yes, please, Tony.
So, audience, here we have a partly constructed existing building that a new client had taken over and wanted assurances as to the credibility and the capability of this building, not only as it was originally designed, but endorsed independently and to be put to, I believe, a different use. So here we have a unique example of a partly constructed existing building that had lain derelict, and many of you will have seen these buildings over recent years, partly completed, abandoned, and yet brought to fruition by engineers researching the design, testing and ascertaining the integrity of the building for its future use. It's one thing to follow through a construction from beginning to end, as we all do in almost all of the buildings, but if we take over a partially completed building, despite records and calculations there may be, it's always a head-scratching time to be able to research and get to know the fundamentals of the building as to whether or not it's capable of adapting, completing, and being put to another use. So we might think as engineers, well, that's a sort of everyday thing, but actually the effort and intensity of research that goes into that are qualifying costs. They really are qualifying costs. Thank you. Do we have any more case studies, team, or
yeah, we've got one more. Yeah. So this is another key important example where structural engineers work with other types of engineers, so whether it be mechanical, electrical, or MEP type of engineers, where individual system uncertainty. So system uncertainty is where individual systems are designed to do one particular aspect within a building, but it is uncertain how that system will interact with other systems. So in this example, this was basically wherein one of our big clients was looking at the feasibility of the design approach and establish the impact of design on sustaining wind loads, as well as the sustainability of new materials for the facade of the building. Now, in this case, what the standard wind analysis and the material analysis was not enough to convince the client whether the structure would be structurally stable, but also the fact that it would provide the required visual appeal as the architect wanted. So a lot of time was spent by this client to study the movements and the tolerances within the structural frame to make sure that not only that it met the statutory requirements, but also the fact that it actually delivered on what the client and the architect had envisioned. Now, the physical model that was initially developed did undergo a wind analysis through a wind tunnel, but it also underwent a fluid mechanics laboratory testing where not just physical analysis was done, but also through a modeling of various scenarios to model wind and the movement of people and the dead and the live loads within the structure. All of this solution, the time that was spent on understanding whether the facade and the materials that was proposed would fit in was used as qualifying cost, because there was no existing methodology available in the market which were able to give them an answer in one go. So the iterative process and the way by which they tried to use existing methodologies in a unique and intuitive manner to deliver the final cladding solution and to make sure that the cladding solution worked for this very particular project was the time that we qualified as the R&D activities. Again, for this project, we were able to claim considerable amount, about 16% of the total turnover of the client, which included this along with other projects, were identified as qualifying cost, which accounted for about 4.4 million of qualifying cost. And that basically meant that the client got about $1 million in tax credits for that particular year.
Just to add to this, Vinayak, actually, to this specific example, the time was one of the eligible costs, but also any materials that used to test the models and the solutions are things were qualified in this case.
Thank you, Ola.
Thank you, guys. So I think, is it back to me now, Andy? I think. Can I take the microphone again?
Yeah, please do, Tony.
Yes. So, audience, I hope that some or all of you are still with us. We'll see when we get to question time. But here's just a slide that indicates that Invennt, they haven't just happened overnight. Over the last several years, both here in the UK, and we're also in Ireland and Canada too, the 160 successful claims, I think we've got 100% claim, we've identified 40 or 50 million pounds worth of qualifying costs and achieved over 12 or 13 million pounds worth of benefits for our clients. Success rate, 100%. There is nonetheless, and I certainly experienced this myself with my then firm, of crikey, surely this isn't for us. This is for those guys in white coats in Cambridge University Science Park and in the pharmaceutical industry. But I was so wrong. You also will, if successful, and if you pursue a claim through Invennt, receive cash or tax credits within 12 weeks of Invent's comprehensive and independently audited report. So it is real, it is for us, and we must explore this and I was going to say exploit it. It's not exploitation. It's there to be claimed. If we don't claim it, you know, it goes in the direction of other industries. So we need to, as always, we're an understated industry. We understate what we do. We're modest about our achievements, but Invennt will bring for you a whole new world. I know that it may seem like a foreign language at the moment. Quite what is, how do we identify it? We bring the teams into your organization to understand what you do and then interpret that in accordance with the language that the HMRC understand. This isn't a trick, it's real. It is a real benefit, and I certainly wish I'd known about it 20 years ago and not just 3 or 4. I hope that you've all gained new knowledge from this, and we'll go on to question time in a minute. It is real, it is for you. Don't hesitate to call on Invennt to see how this can benefit your firm. As I say again, I know that it seems unreal, but it is real, and it really does underpin and enhance the financial income, the rightly appropriate financial income for our various consultancies. So thank you for listening, and this very new way of working, as requested by the Prime Minister just yesterday. So I think we can all congratulate ourselves on reaching out and hopefully, at least in part, making up for that otherwise social excitement always of networking and meeting in person, but hopefully that's to come in a few weeks or a few months' time. We won't lose sight of that. So thank you.